The operational and psychological mechanics of modern monastic tourism reveal a highly complex ecosystem. Within this system lies a behavioral paradox. Two diametrically opposed demographics are participating in the exact same ascetic programs. On one side are adventure-seeking international travelers. On the other, survival-driven domestic professionals. Standard market theory assumes highly divergent consumer bases require fragmented, customized products to meet specific needs. The monastic system bypasses customization through a strategic framework known as agile narrative tailoring. This strategy involves marketing one completely identical programmatic experience by using entirely different psychological framing for each demographic. The physical product remains untouched. The strategy relies on pivoting the user's perception of the experience before they even arrive. Structural success in cultural tourism relies on manipulating these narrative entry points rather than altering the core heritage asset itself. Behavioral economics categorizes one specific set of entry motivations as pull factors. The international demographic segment is highly responsive to these outward pulling forces. This cohort approaches the temple as a historical artifact, driven primarily by intellectual curiosity. The presence of preserved ancient cultural heritage acts as a gravitational force drawing them in. For this group, participating in the monastic experience is an active, outward acquisition of cultural capital. The domestic demographic operates under a contrasting behavioral principle: push factors. Highly competitive modern urban centers generate acute psychological pressures on their residents. These overwhelming environmental stressors forcibly push exhausted domestic professionals out of their bustling cities as they seek immediate relief. These conditions generate a requirement for psychological detoxification. Domestic cohorts utilize the temple infrastructure purely as a mechanism for emotional regulation. They prioritize profound rest and isolation over any form of cultural education. International visitors move towards culture, while domestic visitors flee burnout. The underlying motivations are completely bifurcated. Mixing adventure seekers and trauma-recovering professionals in the exact same physical space creates a high risk of demographic friction. The institution counters this friction through absolute programmatic uniformity. Regardless of their origin or motivation, all participants must adhere to identical ascetic regulations. The program strictly enforces 3 non-negotiable operational rules: mandated silence, uniform dietary consumption, and manual labor. This rigid structure creates a state of uniform therapeutic efficacy. Empirical research demonstrates that both divergent segments report statistically similar satisfaction metrics upon completing the program. The removal of choice eliminates behavioral friction, allowing the schedule to function as a universal equalizer. The uncompromising nature of monastic discipline is the therapeutic mechanism that fulfills both the push and pull desires simultaneously. While micro-level behavioral economics explains local success, analyzing institutional governance reveals how the model scales. The religious order faces the logistical objective of scaling a localized tradition for a global demographic. This creates what is known as the dual mandate. The initiative must successfully stimulate economic productivity through international tourism. At the same time, it is required to safeguard the ascetic integrity of the 𝗤𝗏𝗄 order. The logistical demands of economic expansion through high-volume tourism directly challenge the isolation necessary for ascetic discipline. When localized individual temples attempt to execute both sides of this mandate on their own, operations break down. Forcing practicing monks to manage high-volume hospitality introduces administrative friction that displaces their primary religious obligations. Localized operational management actively degrades the core religious authenticity of the site. Scaling a heritage asset requires separating the spiritual practitioners from the logistical workflow. Ad hoc local management must be replaced by a formalized, overarching governance model. You cannot successfully scale a sacred asset if the asset itself is burdened with the mechanics of scaling. The specific historical intervention to this bottleneck arrived in 2004 with the establishment of the cultural core of Korean Buddhism. The primary function of this institution is to centralize administrative governance away from the local temples. This centralization absorbs the operational friction generated by mass tourism. As a result, individual temples are freed to prioritize religious obligations over hospitality management. This centralized governance model serves as a structural shield, protecting religious authenticity from the externalities of global tourism. Empirical data tracks the organizational expansion facilitated by this centralized model. The baseline in 2004 was 36 participating temples. By 2021, the footprint reached 141 locations, all while satisfaction metrics remained stable. This data demonstrates that centralized management successfully separated massive scale from cultural degradation. Evaluated broadly, the Zen tourism model operates as a reproducible framework for global heritage sites. Success dictates matching agile narrative marketing on the outside with uncompromising programmatic rigidity on the inside. To scale cultural assets without degrading their core authenticity, centralized administration must function as a structural barrier protecting spiritual practice.